Welcome to the Rapid Flow Studio Mark III. It's finally done. I'm going to give you a full tour today of all the gear, all of the acoustics, measurements, how it all came together. If you'll allow me a little plug before we start, I'm hosting a free webinar this month where we can interact live on Zoom. You can ask me anything you want. I'm going to give you input on setting up advanced controller workflows, on finishing tracks fast, and on consistently getting good mixes and masters, sort of the techniques for gain staging and all of that stuff. Yeah, it's free, it's live, it's on Zoom. There's a link in the description and I hope to see you there. And now let's get going. Let me start with probably what most of you are most interested to see, which is how the gear and sort of workflow space has turned out. Here's all the 19-inch outboard. I brought up the Tanzbär here because I love that little drum machine. Yeah, nothing's changed here with my main controller workflow, but what's changed is the mixer has come over here now because I realized I was spending a lot of time going to the mixer to adjust signals. And my input stage is here primarily, although I do also use it on the master sometimes, but this is for me to track and add saturation and EQ to stuff going in, as well as some compression if I need it. And this is more like the output stages, which I use when I'm mastering things. Main keyboard is the Waldorf Iridium. I've just realized the combination of its arpeggio and the way the keyboard feels. It's one of it. Actually, what I realized when I was making Sensory, it's one of the best synths sound-wise. It can do everything. Like I've heard things from it which I would have sworn were an analog Moog type synth. I've heard super digital things from it, so that's front and center now. I love this thing's arpeggio and sequencer. Patch Bay is more in range now, as well as converter, so I can see how I'm tracking things. This is moved off to the side a little bit because I don't make bass lines all the time. It's kind of at the beginning and then they're there, or drums. This is hardwired now to the 8 Raw 8, so the drums is hardwired to the drum parts. And then this is the Dominion and this is the Matriarch. So this is more in line with what I've been aiming to do, which is to reduce complexity and just make things work and be able to go more into a state of flow without having to think too much about MIDI routing and this and that. Like all the synths now have a dedicated channel on the mixers. So if I need any synth or any effect, they're patched through the patch bay, normalized. So everything is routable through the mixer. You can see here, H4000, Sony V77, RSP 550, tape. Everything's piped in now. The Prophet 600 is front and center now because I realized this is my favorite synth, and out of all the Prophets I have, which is an insane sentence to build, out of the Prophet 6 and the Prophet 10, which I'll get to, this for me actually is the best sounding. I love it. It's just, yeah, there's something about its vibe. This is for bass synths, at least that was the idea, and to be honest, since I'd finished Zensphere, I'm just using that. I have not recorded a bass with it yet because many of its basses are in Zensphere, and it's so fast and easy, and it sounds exactly like if I spend 10 minutes tweaking it here. So I just use Zensphere. So yeah, let's see if this bass remains like that. Let's even see if the synth stays in my studio, as cool as it is. But yeah, I'm trying to let go of some gear. As you may know from my studio, I don't have everything out that I own, because many of the things I own are now in Zensphere and I just use them there. The Revox I'm using for bass lines, it was also used on Zensphere. This also is an essential piece. I have the harmonizer here, the DSP 4000, the V77 and the RSP 550. These two are new. And you may be wondering, like, why is he hoarding outboard effects? And the reason is I'm going to make a new plugin which will be some form of advanced convolution of these kinds of crazy, weird, vintage, beautiful, rich effects. It's a kind of the next logical step once you have the sound sources to also add those effects. I want to integrate that also into Zensphere at some point, It's a whole thing, but yes. At some point I'm going to sample impulse responses from these devices and then create a plugin from those. Yeah, the Vermona, it's so special. This thing actually is very difficult to capture in software. It does so many things that are super organic that this one I don't think I would sell. This one will also be sampled one day. It's a very interesting little tiny device, really good for synths. Yeah, the talker is hardwired to the Matriarch, to this mic. I love using this. Yeah, and then over here is this funny little corner, which is kind of just like a zone out and kind of just, you know, play keys corner with the Prophet 10. It's not even piped into the studio, with the Mercury X and with the Cosmos. And this is something new that I got sent. It's the Neo Harp. I'm preparing a video on this. Look out for that on the channel. That's the gear. Here we have the amazing Waldorf Zahnburg, which is again just a piece to play with when I just want to zone out a bit. But also I use this a lot to check tuning, because this thing is digital. So if I'm not 100% sure if its synth is really in tune and the tuner is like not quite clear, I'll use this and just play a C or a D or whatever key I'm in, and then I'm able to actually hear if it resonates harmonically correctly, because this thing is always in tune and it has speakers built in. And yes, I practice piano on it. I use it in tracks sometimes. Yeah, I love this instrument. And I love actually that in this studio, as you may see, more or less, I've managed to create kind of negative space. I mean, I'm not great at it, but it's kind of getting there. Here's my little scrum board that I use to manage projects for Rapid Flow. And then this was like a bed that we had over, so I turned it into a chill area, which is mostly where my son hangs out when he's here in the studio. Sometimes I put him some devices there and a little speaker, and he jams on it and stuff. And this is just like for lounging. There's a beamer up here, so sometimes I also will watch a movie or some YouTube on that wall. Yeah, kind of a rare occurrence, but it can be nice. And now, yeah, towards the studio build, which I'm sure many of you are also interested in finding out. So if you remember the first video, I'll splice a little piece of it in here. The new Rapid Flow studio, because this place is basically an echo chamber. Check this out. The first video I made in this space, it was insane. It was just like endless reverberation. And I guess at this point I should do the mandatory clap test. So I'll also do an REW measurement and splice that in here. So here's the first measurement. This is the SPL in the studio. Super Pro studios have like a plus minus 2 to 3 dB variance in them. My studio now has a variance of, you can see here, 72 dB to 82 dB, which is 10, which is actually for like semi-pro studios what is a really, really great result to get. RT60 decay graph, where you can see all this high frequency stuff here, is super balanced and decays very quickly. Here is this low bump. Here definitely the decay time in the deep lows below 80 Hertz, they're quite long. I mean, they're still under 500 milliseconds, but they're longer than the rest of the room, but considering absolutely workable for me. The other one is decay. This has actually dipped a bit compared to how it used to be. Here's the waterfall, which shows a very similar picture in a more 3D space. And then finally, the spectrogram is also a very interesting look. As you can see, the energy here is super smooth across the frequency range. Here is my low mids buildup, and here is my gap that I have in the low end. But overall, how I built the studio and knowing how the space was before, this is super cool. I'm super happy with this. If you're like a super pro about acoustics and all that kind of stuff, please let me know what you think of seeing these measurements. In short, these massive bass traps that I had built were the best thing that I decided to do. I cannot even begin to say what a difference it made when these things moved in here. The low end in this studio is super controlled. It's actually the best sounding studio I've ever had, starting from the worst possible sound, which proves to me that if you're willing to experiment and like either build something like that or invest a bit into someone making that, you can take any room and on your own turn it into an acoustically great room, because this was as worse as it gets. Like, this was really bad as it gets. So how did I do it? The bass traps, which balance out the low end in the room, of course also absorb some mids and highs and stop standing waves. Above my head, as you can see, is a cloud, which is the cloud I'd already built in my old studio, which absorbs first reflections off the ceiling. At the top right over my head, there's a couple of panels grabbing a bit more reflections. In the back, behind that white curtain, is actually all the cardboard boxes of the studio, and I think they kind of like maybe, you know, drag a bit of mids and low mids also into them. And then there's a thin Molton sheet there just for the optics, but of course that does absorb high frequencies also. And then this is the thing, this stuff that you see here, this is called Molton. It's like the fabric which is used in theaters and on stages often. It's usually black, but you can get it in cream and white. This is cream. I bought this from Thomann. It's not actually massively expensive. I mean, you know, this big one here, which is 6x3, cost me, oh God, I'll put it in the description because I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's like 180 maybe, which is a lot for a piece of fabric, but it's nothing compared to what acoustic modules would cost for the effect that these Molton sheets do, which is they absorb the mid and high frequency in the studio so that there's no flutter echo. And that's why the studio feels so dry. And the main bass absorption obviously is with the bass traps. And this, I don't know, like I got lucky. I just figured like this could work because I had that massive one up in my studio, in the old studio in Albernoa. I had that up for the winter to seal off the room, and I realized the acoustics in here are really cool now. When this was like a room divider, I was like, wow, this stuff is really good for absorbing mids and high frequencies in a way where it doesn't feel horrible, like some foam is not nice. So I got lucky, and what I did is I installed kind of a wooden beam system. This was poor planning on my part. The carpenters has installed this, but it would have had to go way back. But basically that is also at the top of the wall there and at the top of the wall there, because I didn't want to drill tons of holes into the wall of this garage. So that's what I used to hang them. And then, yeah, like, you know, hanging up that wooden thing took 10 minutes, hanging up the curtain another 10 minutes. And then that's it, and it just hangs there. There's about this much space to the wall. So it's good for condensation not to build. It adds a little bit also to its absorption characteristics. And this one I put up yesterday because it was really cold in the studio. As you can maybe see at the top there from the light leak, that I've kind of sealed that with foam, but basically these doors, there's like, yeah, like if I show you in here, they're quite well connected to the outside world, and it was freezing in here, and I'm using like electric radiators and stuff, and just I sealed up this door with tape and covered it so that this absorbs some of the cold. Since then it's manageable. My amazing landlord actually is going to come in here and put a split air conditioning up here so that I have heat and cold in the summer. That's happening hopefully next week because it's been really cold here. And this is actually maybe something nice to show you. This is an infrared heater. It doesn't consume a massive amount of electricity. It's 400 watts, but it radiates a continuous warmth on my feet in that case, and just kind of the heat comes up and it keeps me warm without heating the whole room. Very good recommendation. And then another thing is the moisture absorber here, because you need those in Portugal because, yeah, it's very high humidity. So back to the acoustics. Of course, the wooden floor helps also, no question. I'm really happy I did this because also it keeps the cold out a bit, but it definitely also helps for the acoustics. Surely the sofa also absorbs some stuff, and the carpets, yes, you know, the carpets also absorb some of the bounds everywhere, which meant I didn't really feel compelled to put tons of Basotec everywhere on the ceiling and stuff, because the room can't be too dead. If it's too dead, you put usually way too much reverb on your tracks because everything sounds like it's in an anechoic chamber. I'm really happy in short with how the acoustics of this room turned out. I've started doing mixes here and they're some of the best that I've done. I can put stuff really loud and be comfortable, and it's just like even just being able to open this door and just get the light in, or, you know, shake a bit in the morning to some music and look over the sky while the studio speakers are blasting. It's just really, really great. And yeah, with relatively little investment and a lot of work, this room turned out amazing. It's by far the best sounding room I've ever had, which is definitely due to its size also. Obviously, when a room is large, it's easier to deal with bass. I had some pretty significant dips in the low end, which the bass traps took care of. And as I stated on my first video, my goal with this was not like to spend as little as possible, to not buy stuff, but to recycle as much as possible. So what I spent on is the floor. The whole floor, including installation, was under 700 euros. And then the bass traps, building them, installing them, transporting them, the materials inside, everything like that, was another similar kind of sum. Then the Molton curtains, which I would say is like maybe 200, 150, 130. So all in all, the whole studio build to turn this garage, which sounded like an echo chamber, into one of the best acoustic spaces I've ever had, was under 2K. And I'm super happy about that, because I had someone quote me what it would cost to do this room with like foam and traps and whatnot, you know, like pro stuff. It was going to be about 7,000-8,000 euros. I was like, yo, no way. I mean, you know, on some level I would maybe spend it, but I know enough about acoustics to know that I don't need to spend it, because I know that in essence what you need are massive bass traps and mid and high frequency absorption that doesn't make the sound too dead. So I hope this gives you some inspiration for what you can actually do yourself with relatively simple means. The only foam I would ever recommend using is Basotec, because it absorbs really well. It's fire retardant, as actually are these Molton curtains. I would never use curtains, this gray pyramid foam, all that stuff, please forget about it. If you can get a hold of Molton, I've now validated that this stuff is incredible for damping mid and high frequencies. They actually, yeah, they absorb pretty far down for considering it's a piece of cloth. I mean, it's pretty thick. So hopefully this gives you the inspiration to maybe try something similar if you're struggling to get a room right, because the room area here, as you can see, was huge. If I tried to do all of this even with Basotec, it would have been insanely expensive. I'm trying to think. I mean, that has 4 panels. That's about 200, a little less, maybe 150 euros in Basotec. So you imagine that across all of these walls. So that's it. That's what I can tell you about the new studio, and maybe just to share with you the ones. Oh, I realize now, one thing I didn't touch upon is that I originally planned to set up my studio, my main area there. And when I did the first measurements, I realized it was a very bad idea. So I moved it here, which make a lot of sense because they are between the bass traps. And then the cool thing happened that it turned out that by having the studio this way, as actually you can see very nicely now at the end of the day, the sun shines in through this one little window that I have that I'm so grateful for. And actually, if you would hang around here a bit longer, you can see it crawling in here. At a certain point around 5 p.m., it just hits the whole studio and lights everything up with sunshine. And it's just, yeah, it's just magic. I'm so grateful for how all of this has come together. Yeah, sometimes you put in a lot of effort, you do your best to make stuff cool, you get help where you need it. And sometimes you also just get a bit lucky. And we were lucky to find this house. I was lucky to find the people that could help me get the carpenters to build these traps. I was lucky that the traps were well dimensioned thanks to an LLM's help. I was lucky to figure out that these cloths work well for audio. So yeah, this is how it turned out. I hope that you've enjoyed this studio tour. I'm doing live streams on YouTube pretty regularly now. I'm trying to do 2 videos a week also where I show you something. So you can see a lot more of the studio if you follow and subscribe. And yeah, let me know your thoughts. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you on a stream or on the next video. I hope this has been an inspiration for you and your studio build. And I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy. Bye-bye.